Greeting everyone. My name is Dhiraz Maharzan. I'm representing Group 21. My group members are Vishnu BC, Awaz Lamichane, Vikas Hamal, and Priyas Lamsal. Our topic for the presentation is Australian banking sector. Banking sector is the industry which provides financial service and advice to the customer who seek the banking services. This report states the issue regarding the banking sector of Australia. Banking sector in Australia is regulated by Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, APRA. This report will have the following sections: background information about the Australian banking sector, the market structure, summary of the associated issue related to banking sector of Australia, the impact of banking issue on the banking industry and the Australian economy, and the government policy to stabilize the industry. Banking in Australia was established in 1817. The first Bank of Australia was Bank of NSW in Australia. It enjoyed its monopoly for 17 years, and in 1834, the second bank, the Commercial Banking Company of Sydney, was established. At the beginning, banks were allowed to issue their private notes, which were regarded as money within Australia only. It lasted for 1910. I would like to call Priyas Lamsal for further presentation.
Thank you, Dhiraz. Now I'd like to talk upon the topic of banking sector market structure. The Australian banking sector has an oligopoly market structure. Oligopoly market structure is a market in which there are many companies or suppliers, but the market is dominated by few suppliers. The Australian banking sector has 147 banks in total, but its target market share belongs to very few banks, and this is because of the self-regulatory of banks. The banking sector in Australia is dominated by only 4 banks, namely the Westpac, the Commonwealth Bank, the National Australian Bank, and the ANZ Bank. Free entry and exit the banking sector. Lack of uniformity in the banks of Australia. Competition is very high when it comes to banking sector. Market concentration of the banking sector is Australia is high for the big 4 banks. The summary of its associated issues are: the Royal Commission into Misconduct in the Banking, Superannuation and Financial Services. Industry is a commission that was formed on 14 December 2017. The Government of Australia to investigate on the allegation of greedy and mismanagement in the financial institution in Australia. The Commission was established following the adoption of the Commission Act 1902. The findings of the Commission did indeed confirm that there was misconduct in both financial institutions and the government regulatory bodies. The Commission made 76 recommendations, of which 24 are criminal activities and referred for crime charge in the court of law. The Commission further revealed that the misconduct identified are aided by the top management level of organization. Thank you. Now I would like to call upon Vikas Hamal for the further presentation.
Thank you, Priyas. I'm Vikas Hamal, and I'm going to talk about impacts of the misconducts in the financial institutions. The confidence level in the Australian sector will reduce, the reputation of the sector will be affected, and the international investor will not transact with the mentioned banks. The sector will have more regulations and monitoring of the activities of the institutions. The sector will have high quality of services, reduction in circulation in the economy of Australia. The economy of high rate of unemployment, distribution of wealth will be affected due to increased investments. The demand of money will be very high due to less money in the economy. Now, the government policy on the banking sectors. The Australian government aims at restoring trust in Australia's financial system policy to ensure stability in the banking sector. The policy reform will aim at enhancing the image of Australian banking and financial sectors. The government will ensure there is protection for all players in the financial sector. This policy will assure equal and fair treatment plus protection in the sector. The accountability of all the management level by following all set laws and regulatory guidelines to the letter. This will lead to those who do not follow the right procedure and laws personally accountable for the wrong and impact of their behavior. The policy will also ensure there is effective regulatory system. The policy is to ensure there is normal service delivered to all citizens, that financial sector is effectively managed and have healthy competition. Thank you for listening me, and further will be continued by my friend Vishnu.
Thank you, Vikas. My name is Vishnu VC. I'm here to conclude on the topic, but before that, I'd like to revise on the overall topic on the Australian banking sector. Firstly, we discuss on the background information. Secondly, the banking sector market structure, where we discuss about a oligopoly market. There were a lot of free entry and exit on this market. Thirdly, we discuss on the summary of its associated issues, where banks were investigated on the allegation of greedy and mismanagement. Fourthly, we discuss on the impact of the misconduct in the financial institutions, where investors were very much doubtful in investing the money on the Australian banking. Fifthly, we discuss on the government policy in the banking sector. So now I'd like to conclude on the topic. The banking sector of Australia has undergone several changes and developed since its began in the year 1817. It has several banks but dominated by only 4 banks. The banking sector is very much vital when it comes of money circulation in the economy. The Royal Commission went into misconduct in the banking, superannuation and financial service industry. Findings are of help as they will lead to solving some challenges and strengthening the sector. The issue has both sector and Australian impacts and therefore should be addressed very well. The government has come up with a reform policy of the financial sector, and this will help us to restore the lost trust and reputation of the Australian banking sector. Therefore, banking sector is vital in the economy. Finally, we'd like to thank our lecturer Izwan Maestro for giving us this opportunity to present ourselves on this topic. Thank you.